So we all know that Twisting Blades is an exceptionally great rogue skill, but what can we use instead of it? I've gotten a lot of questions about, I don't want to play a Twisting Blades build. What build is going to be the next best option? Or are they even viable outside of Twisting Blades? And I am very, very pleased with a lot of the options this season, but in particular, I've been really, really enjoying Rapid Fire. This is kind of my secondary build I go to, and I've been trying to just not use Twisting Blades for a while now, just because I've been a little bit bored with it. And Rapid Fire got exceptionally good with the new season, as I'm sure everyone's sick of hearing. The Barber is the season defining thing in the game. And it made Rapid Fire an insane single target damage skill, and now it's an insane AoE damage skill with the combination of the Barber. So that's the real big buff this build got, and it makes it so it's really, really viable for speed clearing. Now I have a link to the planner. It is a work in progress, although I'm kind of almost done with it. A lot of the Paragon things I've been really, really enjoying. And one thing that I've really noticed is the amount of CC this build can pump out, along with the amount of energy regeneration you get, is just absolutely ridiculous. Now, it's not quite a full-on melee range rogue build, and I like the dichotomy of that, but it's not quite a build where you are only, fighting in melee, right? Because previously, a lot of the other options that you had, you'd have to be in melee range to really get a lot of effectiveness out of the build. But because of the Barber, you have a lot of AoE options, and also you have so much CC with the cold imbuement. As you can see there, we just one-shot everything, and in fact, having multiple enemies in the area just allows you to one-shot entire groups extremely quickly. And we're on a tier 52, which isn't like exceptionally high by any means. It is just something that I've just dove into real quick just to showcase the build. But with the combination of the cold imbuement and the shadow imbuement, you have so much damage and CC. It is crazy. And as I mentioned earlier, you basically have infinite energy. Now, it's a combination of Rapid Fire doing its Rapid Fire things, the enhanced Rapid Fire, giving you the options to basically get energy back on the vulnerable enemies, which has been really, really good. But also, the other thing that's been really, really nice is that shadow damage from the Barber that gives you energy back on kill. This has been really, really nice. And you'll notice that I actually don't do a ton of damage if I don't have the CC up, which has been really, really nice. With the cold imbuement, you actually just basically one-shot everything. The difference in damage that you're able to do when you do have that up is insane. Now, one thing that you'll notice is I'm not doing as much damage as I was on the Twisting Blades. And one thing that's been really, really important for people to kind of note, and I don't want to get killed by something random, but I guess we're risking it, is glyphs. A lot of people have been asking, okay, what level are your glyphs? And that's one thing that you have to note with these builds is leveling up glyphs is going to be extremely important for you to get the best amount of power out of your build, quite obviously, right? Extra upgrades, extra damage. And I have 2 level 21 glyphs from my previous build, but two glyphs that I've been running right now, the Ranger and the Exploit glyphs, are now upgraded at all. They're level 1 right now. And it's because I didn't upgrade them. I was busy upgrading other glyphs, and I wanted to see what the build difference was when I was leveling up, the other glyphs versus using brand new glyphs. So I wanted to keep these at level 1 for that reason. And you'll notice a huge power drop off as per usual. And this is just to answer a lot of your questions out there. Do you need higher level glyphs? Not necessarily, but when you have a level 1 glyph, it is a big difference from like a level 10 or level 16, level 21, right? These are massive, massive upgrades when you actually do get these, the radius increases and you actually do get the upgrades in them. The early levels, though, very easy to upgrade, right? You can jump up to level 8, 9, extremely easy. Only a few nightmare dungeons are needed. But those later levels, they do add up. But remember, the jump from 1 to 9 is about as good as like 9 to, 17 or so. Granted, there is a radius increase in there, so it changes the math a little bit. But generally speaking, those early upgrades are pretty important, and you do want to make sure those are in your build. Another thing that I've noticed about Rapid Fire, and if you decide to use any sort of ranged skill, especially Barrage, Penetrating Shot less so, but especially Barrage or Rapid Fire, you really, really want a bow, not a crossbow, a bow. And it might be counterintuitive. I am using a crossbow right now, and this is kind of why I wanted to mention this, is the bow allows you to get extra attack speed, which is really, really important to prevent you from standing in place. Because what you'll notice is, like, when I shoot rapid fire, I'm kind of stuck in place, right? I can't move. So for example, if I'm trying to kite out some people, like I'm showing here, you can see I'm kind of just taking a bunch of extra damage because I'm standing in place. And that's because I'm spamming out the rapid fire and standing in place, and I'm going to end up dying, as you can see here, right? I just die because I'm not able to, granted, I was kind of showcasing that, but I'm not able to move around, able to avoid the ranged hits as well as the melee hits, right? You do want to end up in close range sometimes, but only when you have the CC available so you don't take close damage. And the crossbow, it being a slow weapon, reduces your attack speed by a significant amount. And then also with, things like the accelerating ring giving you extra attack speed, percentage attack speed, well, that doesn't really work too well with things like the crossbow. So even though the crossbow has vulnerable damage, which I tend to like more, running a bow is going to be exceptionally important in a lot of these scenarios. So something to keep in mind if you're going to run this build. But I'm going to go ahead and dive into the planner just to talk a little bit more about the build and showcase a couple of things that you're going to want to keep in mind if you're running this. So what do we got going on? I know a lot of you have been asking for a max roll planner version, so I decided to do that this time. Hopefully you guys enjoy that a little bit more. I'll leave a link to this down below. But essentially what we got going on here is a really powerful rapid fire combination with a lot of survivability. I tend to focus a ton on survivability in all of my builds nowadays because I find it to be the most key thing to make sure you're running. And one thing that I've really enjoyed is the helmet here, the aspect of cruel sustenance with the victimize passive. This actually synergizes quite well with Barber, because when you deal direct damage to a vulnerable enemy, you have a chance to cause an explosion, dealing 23% of the original damage to them and surrounding enemies. This really starts to set off all the detonations going. And my favorite part is the fact that it's some sort of sustain within the build. You can't really run the momentum passive with this build because you don't really have an option to use a cutthroat skill besides your dashing abilities here, which don't tend to do super well, although you can change it up, and that's what I've been kind of messing around with, whether or not I like the momentum healing passive with the dash skills and the shadow step, of course, or I like the victimize more. And it really depends on how you play the build. If you are speed clearing, I tend to like victimize a little bit more, but if you are able to kind of chain those dashes with momentum, then hitting a frozen enemy is not too hard with cold imbuement. So as I kind of tune up the build, I'll decide which one I like more. But cheats aspect, we have so much crowd control running around. We have the Umbrus aspect here on the pants. We have Marksman giving us free Dark Shroud stacks, which is going to be really nice for survivability. Penitent Greaves, these are boots that I've just really liked on all my builds. Really works well with the Frigid Finesse, and especially when we're using cold imbuement, even better. We're going to be running the imitated imbuement aspect here on the gloves. It's going to be really nice to give our Shadow Clone that cold imbuement. Rapid fire with Shadow Clone has been really nice in order to just pump out so much damage. Then we have the disobedience aspect on our amulet here. And then the Edge Masters, because we're basically going to have 100% energy all the time. Accelerating Loop for extra critical strike chance, giving us attack speed. Attack speed super important. Blast Trappers, because we are running that poison trap, so extra vulnerable application, especially against bosses. That's really handy. And then we have the Vengeful aspect here, giving us extra crit chance against vulnerable enemies, which is really nice. Overall, though, this build has been really nice. We are using the preparation to give us Shadow Clone refreshes, which is pretty cool, and then of course refreshing all of our other skills as well. And because we're going to be spending a ton of energy, prep ends up giving us a ton of cooldown reduction. We're literally spamming it. But the only thing that, again, I would really encourage you all to kind of make sure you're running is that bow. Man, oh man, is the bow exceptionally better than the crossbow. If you look here, 1.1 attacks per second. That is considered a fast weapon. If we hop into game here and we look at the crossbow, this is 0.9 attacks per second. That is a huge downside. It is more than 20% increase in attack speed, and that's going to really change the game for you all. But that's kind of the, primer, the initial build that I'm running. I'm going to be messing around with it going forward, and I'll be changing it as I develop more, tunings to the build, and I'll do a full breakdown of my favorite version of the rapid fire coming soon. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think about rapid fire so far, and if you've been enjoying any other builds, and I'll see you all for the next one.